Hi, welcome back. And I trust that you've had a good time with this next paragraph in 1 John chapter 3, and we're going to be looking at verses 19 through 24. And I entitle this, The Test of an Uncondemning Heart. In the previous paragraph, 11 through 18, it was the test of love. So let's take a look and see what we have here. In verse 19, I label this as the introduction to a condemning heart. All right, in 19, kai en tuto, and in this we will know, future, deponent, indicative, first person plural. We shall know, and what shall we know? That we are from the truth, and before him, empros then is sort of a reverential way of being before him, and we shall persuade our heart. So, and in this we shall know that we are from the truth, and we shall persuade our heart before him. Verse 20, because if our heart should condemn. Now, kata gnoske is a present active subjunctive third person plural, a compound verb with kata and gnosko. So present active subjunctive third person singular, and the subject is our heart. So if our heart should condemn. Now, literally, we have here, because greater is God than our heart. Now, here we have the genitive of comparison. Maidzone, greater, is then followed by the genitive of comparison. God is greater than our heart. And he knows all things. Now, the introduction to the test of an uncondemning heart, which includes the knowledge or assurance that we are from the truth and we will persuade our heart. Now, the instrumentation or means, en tuto, in this or by this, by which believers can persuade their own hearts. Well, here it follows. God is greater than our hearts, and he knows all things. Now, notice what I put here in brackets. Christian hearts are not the final arbiter. God is greater than our hearts, which can often condemn. And secondly, the fact that God knows all things can be juxtaposed with Christians who know things only partially. God sees the full picture. All right, so an uncondemning heart then leads to confidence of speech and answered prayer. So in 21, agape toi, beloved, if our heart should not condemn. Here we have aorist active or present active subjunctive, third person singular. We have boldness of speech or confidence here, parrhesion, before God or towards or facing God, and that whatever we should ask, aeon, itomen, present active subjunctive first person plural, we receive from him, because we keep his commandments. Terumen, contract verb, present active indicative, first person plural. And the next line here, poiumen, we practice. Present active indicative, first person plural. This is also a contract verb. we do the things that are pleasing before him. Now, let me suggest here an elision of something implied. In 21, beloved, if our heart should not condemn, meaning us. And notice what I have in brackets. Because we accept the truth that God is greater and knows all things, we are certainly lesser than God, and we know only partially. So here we accept God's verdict. God is greater. He knows all things. And because of this, we don't stand in self-condemnation. So here we have a cause-effect relationship between an uncondemning heart, because we've accepted God's estimation, and the confidence toward God and answered prayer. So here's the effect. We have confidence, boldness of speech with God, and that whatever we should ask, we receive from him. That is answered prayer. And then we also find that answered prayer is the result of keeping his commandments and doing the things which are pleasing before him. So again, whatever we should ask, we receive from him because we are keeping his commandments and we are doing the things that are pleasing before him. Then in verse 23, I titled this the two things that are pleasing to God, because just in the preceding line, the evangelist had stated we are doing the things that are pleasing to him. And what are they? Well, in 23, we find this is his commandment. Now, again, I would take here as an object clause and not translate it as an order, but simply that. Well, what is his commandment? That we should believe. Aorist, active, subjunctive, first person plural. We should believe, or we should trust in the name of his Son, Jesus Christ. So that's one thing. And secondly, that we should love, continue to love, present, active, subjunctive, first person plural, one another, just as he gave. Now that comes from didomi. This is an aorist, active, subjunctive, third person singular. He gave a commandment to us. So we have a movement here from the general to the twofold particulars with respect to commandments. All right, so we keep his commandments here, that's plural, and then we find what is his commandment, and the commandment here is really twofold. We should put our trust, and secondly, that we should love one another, just as he gave a commandment to us. So notice here we have the term commandment here repeated 3 times. But now it's made particular with putting our trust and secondly, loving one another. The third thing that we notice here is that an uncondemning heart also leads to a mutual indwelling. And in previous presentations, we've seen the importance of that Johannine verb meno, I abide, remain, continue, with the language of mutual indwelling. So verse 24, and the one who keeps his commandments, hateron, present active participle, masculine singular nominative. The one who keeps his commandments abides in him and he in him, meaning God abides in him. That verb carries over. And in this, we know that he abides in us. And then we find the statement, from his Spirit, or from the Spirit, which edoken he gave to us. Aorist, active, indicative, third person singular, from didomi. So mutual indwelling, and also the assurance here of the Holy Spirit that he has already given. So we have a cause-effect relationship between an uncondemning heart, keeping commandments, and mutual indwelling. So right here we have the language of mutual indwelling. He abides in him, and he in him. Now, we also find, just as we did with the previous paragraph, that we have inclusion. With the instrumental in tuto, we have a form of gnosko and the conjunction hati. So notice here that what starts the paragraph also concludes the paragraph. And tuto, a form of gnosko, and the conjunction hati. Another means of knowing or the mutual indwelling is the Holy Spirit. Ektu pneumatos. Now let me say this also prepares for 4:1. And how is the preparation made? Mention of the Spirit here is followed by the imperative in 4:1. Stop believing every spirit. So it, in a way, sets the stage, prepares, or introduces something of the content of what the next paragraph is going to be dealing with. Now, finally, by way of application or conclusion, Christians often struggle with a condemning heart. And over the years, as I have encountered so many adult learners, people do struggle with self-condemnation. And let me say to you that there is a distinction between true guilt and false guilt. True guilt arises from something that we are personally responsible for, causing emotional hurt to another person. And we need to keep short accounts with that person as well as with God by owning up to what we have done and accepting personal responsibility for it and saying, I was wrong for what I did. Will you forgive me? I was wrong for what I said to you in a hurried or a rude manner. Will you forgive me? That is real guilt. But false guilt is something far different. It expresses itself in all of the second guessing. I should have, I would have, I could have. And the list goes on and on. Now, in this paragraph, let me suggest to you that there are several antidotes to a condemning heart. And as Christians, we can certainly engage in self-talk. First of all, the evangelist states that we need really to accept God's estimation. God is greater than our hearts, and he knows all things. The paragraph also suggests a very simple ethic, not a complicated list of things that Christians are to follow, line by line by line. The two things here he singles out: that we should put our trust in Jesus Christ, the Son of God, And secondly, that we should love one another. That's a relatively simple ethic. Another antidote is that of mutual indwelling. The amazing reality that we abide in God and God abides in us. And last, the other antidote is the Holy Spirit that God has given. So this paragraph that I entitled The Test of an Uncondemning Heart, we find that the evangelist provides several antidotes by which Christians can combat the whole issue of a condemning heart, or what I may call false guilt. Thanks.